Hello and welcome to the 28 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Today's podcast brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. I want to also say thank you to the folks at Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. Easy to use and affordable technology that makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. It's all the metrics and features used at the highest level of our sport. See pitchlogic.com for more information. You did not hear me incorrectly. I said 28 minutes because today, Turbo Pod. And for the Turbo Pod, I am joined by the gentleman, the man known as Fast Joe Healy, the gentleman known as the twitchiest member of the D1 baseball team, Aaron Zebby Barrels Fitt, and the person that put explosive in explosiveness, Kendall J. Rogers. Gentlemen, welcome to the Turbo Pod. Yeah, that's right, KR. KR, you're kind of like the speed power combination of our team.
Would you classify me as a speed combination at all?
Yeah, so I said speed and power. Okay. You're 20 bags and 20
bombs.
I'll
give you the power. I'm like the CJ Cron of D1 baseball.
Yeah. CJ Cron. He was a great college player.
I'm the Lucan Baker of D1 baseball.
Even better. So, all right, boys. So we have a hard stop at 30 after because I have to I have a game that I have to jump in an Uber for. And so this is great. We're going to do the Turbo Pod. The way we're going to do it, I've asked each of you to pull up our scores page for Friday because that's when every game is going to play. I asked you to scroll past the rankings scores, the rankings games, and that gets us to the Bryant Athletic Conference, which is no longer the Northeastern Conference. It's the America East. And what I want to do is we're going to go like 30 to 60 second bursts. If you go too long, I will gong you. And then just first series you see as we're traveling vertically down, verbalize it, tell us what's top of mind. And then, I'll go first, Kendall, and then we're just going to go clockwise on our screen. It'll go me to Kendall, to Fitzy, to Joe. You guys don't need me to transition you. I may do that a little bit, but Kendall, when I stop, you just jump in there. And
did you say scroll past the ranked series?
Yes. Because you'll see those as you go through the conferences, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we do have to be expeditious because there's some really good conferences at the bottom. So, it's a little bit like a drinking game, except for it's 3 p.m. and hopefully no one's drinking. Are we clear?
I hope some people are drinking. I mean, not me, but
yeah. That's right.
So let's do it, Runes.
Think in terms of bursts. Okay, so I'm going to start us. I'm looking at the American East Conference. Let's just fire right now. Bryant at Pittsburgh is really cool. Like, Bryant's having a great year. Pitt has had a great. I love Pitt's team. You guys know that. I've written about them. They have struggled in ACC play, but that's a cool little series. Bryant at Pitt, and Bryant feels like they're back, and Pitt is. They're not untalented. They've just, I think, a very tough ACC has been hard on them. So Bryant at Pitt piques my interest. Kendall, coming to you, baby.
Yeah, I'll go with St. Louis at George Washington. Greg Ritchie and the boys at GWU, right in the middle of the pack in the A10. And Darren Hendrickson in St. Louis has done a tremendous job so far this year. Keep an eye on Pat. I hope I don't get this last name wrong. Pat Clohisi. From
nice.
SLU. Go ahead.
Well done, Clohisi. Yeah, it's well done.
Okay. He's had a fantastic offensive year in a year that we've talked about, the Charlie Condons and Jack Caggs of the world, et cetera. Go look at his numbers. He's done a tremendous job for the Billies offensively. So keep an eye on him this weekend.
Love it. Fitzy.
Kendall, of course, notoriously not great at following directions. I'm gonna do what you said, Runes, and go in order and take the one that Kendall was supposed to take.
Well, I'm an A10 homer. I'm sorry.
The American
Athletic.
Yeah,
and just to be clear, Fitzy, I like that you're going to do the American, but you don't have to take a conference. Like, we don't have to mention every conference. But if you like something in the American, by all means.
I thought we were supposed to go all the way down in order.
No, well, we got to go fast, so you can skip. We can skip leagues. We can skip leagues.
Real quick, American Athletic. It's a battle to see who is going to emerge as a challenger for East Carolina. You've got UTSA up there, but I got my eye on FAU versus USF, two teams that are 7-8. Feel like they've got more talent than their records indicate. kind of both of them kind of slumping at the moment. Let's see if one of these teams can snap out of a funk and make a run.
Love it.
I got the ACC. So I'm going to go Florida State at Duke, just a stone's throw from the Casa de Healy here in Durham. My big thing with this one is that with Florida State, we like the individual talent. We like the team. The metrics are great. We're still kind of waiting for them to have that statement ACC series win and to really get going in that regard. I think there's a chance that they're the best team in the ACC. I know Aaron disagrees with that, but there is a chance they are. But we need to see them start to play like it in the series against the other teams that are kind of in that conversation. So FSU and Duke is what has my attention this weekend.
I don't disagree that there's certainly a chance that they're the best team in the league. No question. I mean, it's just a matter of right now. I still believe that it's Duke, although I picked Florida State in this series. I like Florida State's team a lot. And for me, it's just all about whether Florida State can get healthy on the mound. Can they get
worth mentioning that Whitaker and Leiter are not in the rotation again this weekend.
Yeah. And it sounded like last week that Leiter sounded like he was really close. I thought he might be back in the rotation this week, but evidently not yet.
Love it. And the ACC, this is what I love about the ACC this year is the weekends are hard, like Virginia, Boston College. Boston College is going to give Virginia a hard time with this ALS game, and Virginia Tech at North Carolina. You mentioned Florida State at Duke. I mean, Notre Dame's been a hard place to play. Clemson at Louisville, they're coming on. It's really the ACC has that SEC feel to it this year to me. So I could consider the American or the Atlantic Sun here. I don't think that I love. It's a bunch of good series. I don't see an elite one. I'm going to go to the Big 12. I'm looking at Texas at Oklahoma. That's the one that jumps off the page at me. Kansas State at TCU as well. Those are two really critical series. Can Oklahoma run away from the league? Can Texas help climb this RPI? TCU's kind of on life support in the conference. Kansas State, they need to keep winning games, but they have a very regional feel team. So Big 12, very intriguing. Go ahead, KR.
Yeah, I'll go with in the Big East, Creighton and Georgetown. Creighton, by the way, two really big midweek wins over Coastal Carolina to boost their boost the RPI just a little bit in the midweek. They have Georgetown this weekend. Georgetown had a golden opportunity, guys, to make a statement last week against UConn. They get swept in that series, but they get another opportunity this week. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago about G-Town having a really difficult schedule in the Big East to end the season. Well, they have the Blue Jays this weekend, and the RPI for Edwin Thompson's club has gone down considerably in the last week. This weekend, they can kind of right that ship a little bit and kind of get back into the bubble discussion with a series win over Creighton. So a lot of at stake, in my opinion, here with G-Town and their ability to at least get in the postseason discussion again.
Fitzy, look at just the earth lining this up for you right now. Do you see the series that is sitting in your lap?
Oh, of course I do. I'm fired up. Big South, USC Upstate Spartans, your Presbyterian College Blue host series of the year in this league. And I know High Point's right there actually wedged between them in the standings at 11-4. So hat tip to High Point. But I still feel like Presbyterian is the team that has the best chance to knock off Upstate, and take that auto bid in the conference tournament. I like Presbyterian's team a lot. I say that, I mean, they're one game under 500 overall, but they've got some real talent. Some guys who are going to be drafted. Joel Dragoo in center field could be like a top 5 to 7 round guy. He's big, physical, speed and power center fielder, hitting over 400 with 11 bombs. He's having a great year. And you got two real starters in Daniel Egan, the big power righty, big body with the mid-90s fastball, and Charlie McDaniel, the lefty, with 3 quality pitches. And both those guys have ERAs under 3. So, I mean, there's a lot to like just with those 3 names alone with this Presbyterian team. But the road goes through Spartanburg. And by that, I mean, it goes through, Upstate, guys. I mean, this is a 2 teams that are located very near each other. It should be a fun weekend, but certainly Upstate's the team to beat. So let's see how this goes over there in Clinton.
Love it.
I'll slide down to the Big Ten. I've got Illinois at Maryland on my mind here. From both sides, really. Illinois leads the Big Ten still, technically 10-2. I mean, thanks to the Big Ten having bye weeks and what have you, it's a little wonky, but they're 10-2 in conference, but they're not really like an RPI range to be an at large. I know Aaron and Kendall and Mark dealt with that on the Nerdcast a little bit of what to do with Illinois. And now they've got a tricky series with Maryland, which hasn't had the season they've hoped to have in the Big Ten. They're sitting at 6-9, but it's fascinating from their standpoint, because if they can start to claw their way back, their RPI is actually not bad. It's sitting at 43 as we record here today. If they can get back over 500, the Big Ten, really go on a run here, like they're maybe a little bit of a dark horse candidate to make a regional. They're just going to have to get going. So knocking off the league leader in the Big Ten would be a good way to start that.
Love it. I'll take the Big West, the large West. Fullerton's at Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara's the healthiest they've been. They did lose their midweek game, but they had been on an 8-game winning streak. They're hitting for power. Like this is a very talented team where it's starting to come together. So, no, of course, Fullerton's very, very young, and I think that's why their record is what it is. I'm going to also reference Hawaii's going to UC San Diego. I think for the optics of the Big West, they need UC San Diego, who's not postseason eligible. They need them to win a bunch of games, preferably not finish first, but like they're clipping teams like Irvine and Santa Barbara, and they need a good record at the end of this because we know they can pitch. So Hawaii's tricky, but UC San Diego needs to keep winning for the good of the league. KR.
I'll go to the Coastal Athletic Association, and I'll actually go with College of Charleston at Campbell. I think if you look at the series overall, really intriguing. Lawson Harrell earlier in the week for the Camels had 7 RBIs, hit a grand slam. So obviously red hot offensively. Grant Nips back and healthy. Walter Villa for us had a really good feature on him earlier this week, so check that out. But Campbell gets Charleston at home. This is the battle of two teams that the DSR loves, but the RPI not so much. Campbell sitting at 81 in the RPI, 58 in the DSR, which I tend to think is more accurate. And then Charleston is 62 fellas in the RPI. There are 27 in the DSR. So really interesting series between two teams that are vying for an at-large bid here in a few weeks, but some work to do, at least as it pertains to the RPI.
All right, I'm up. We got Conference USA here, boys. I guess I'm looking at Dallas Baptist and FIU. This is really an important series for DBU, coming off a series loss last week to La Tech. If they want to host, they got to kick it into gear because the RPI is right there, 20 in the RPI, but they're 7-5 in the league, 5th place. It's like, that's not going to get it done. I think really you'd like to see them win their league in a conference like that to really feel good about their hosting chances. But at the very least, they need to get up there to top 2 or so. FIU, surprisingly, in 2nd place right now, 10-5 in the conference. Not a team that I think anyone saw coming. But hard-hitting Rich Whitten in his second year there, year, right, as a head coach, doing a really good job. 23-17, coming off a sweep on the road at New Mexico State, not the easiest place to play. Kind of an intriguing series right now.
Hard-hitting Rich Whitten. Well played, Fitzy. I had not heard that, but I will be stealing that. Thank you.
So I will skip past the Horizon League. No disrespect to NKU and Milwaukee as a somewhat interesting series. I'm going to go to the Metro Atlantic because I love the Metro Atlantic even more. That's what it is. I'm going to go Niagara at Ryder in the
First
series of the season. In the Metro
Purple Aces, Fitzy? Purple, what are they, Purple?
Purple Eagles.
Purple Eagles.
How dare you, Rudes?
Famous alum Calvin Murphy, former Houston Rockets great, Niagara.
Oh, well played.
Yeah. As a Houston Rockets fan growing up, that was he was a big part of my childhood. Both 11-1 in the conference. A couple of interesting names here. I really like Luke Lesh for Ryder for a couple of reasons. One, he wears the number 99. He's a 6'5", 240-pound corner infielder. So I think you kind of understand what his game is when I tell you that. However, he has gone 6 for 6 in stolen bases. So the dude can move a little bit. For Niagara, their pitching they go about their pitching interesting here where they are heavy on bullpen. They've got a bunch of guys who have, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 bullpen appearances. And those are kind of their best guys. With one exception, the exquisitely named Maximilian Ramirez IV, who is their best starting pitcher, and really the only guy they have who is kind of that stalwart in the rotation. Around him, they've kind of had a little bit of a revolving door. Like I said, they stack their bullpen. So, jokes aside about the Metro Atlantic, an important series in that league that's probably going to go a long way towards determining the number one overall seed in their conference tournament.
Can we call him Emperor Maximilian Ramirez IV, the last emperor of the Aztec Empire?
You can do whatever you like.
We just need to call him the Emperor. I mean, what a name, boy! That's joyous.
Amazing.
I'm going to go to the MAAC 1A. They're down in A, the Mid American Conference. Bowling Green, who is 17-1 in the league, is 17-1. I repeat, 17-1, but they're going to Kent State, which is the blue blood of the MAAC. DJ Newman, if you're having trouble remembering that, just think Newman from Seinfeld. So he's thank you. 3-hole hitter and their best pitcher. Their Friday night guy. He's like a 6-foot righty. But again, he's leading them in hitting, and he's their Friday night guy. He's excellent. Clearly feels like the MAAC player of the year at this point. So, I mean, Bowling Green is 17-1. They're having one of the best seasons in the history of the league. So there you go. Okay. Rose.
Yeah, I'll go to the Missouri Valley. I'll go with Indiana State at SIU. What's really interesting about this series is just the fact that Indiana State's been red hot as of late. They entered our top 25 rankings earlier this week. And how about a hat tip to Luke Hayden? We talk so much about guys that, transfer to the bigger schools and flourish. How about Luke Hayden going from Indiana to Indiana State last year? Guys, he had an ERA over 9. This year, he's done a tremendous job. He's got an ERA of 2.84, 2.38 OBA, and 59 strikeouts and 50 2/3 innings. So he's done a really nice job at the front of that rotation, which is really needed because they lost 2 of their weekend starters from last year's Super Regional team. But it's been wash, rinse, repeat for Mitch Hannes and the Sycamores so far this year.
Hey, boys, Fitzy, I'm gonna interject real quick. So I have Indiana State on Sunday. We got to talk to Mitch Hannes today. It was awesome. He talked about their defense is down this year, and we were talking about that, and he said, our defenders learned this year how good Jacek and Fenlong were last year. Like mishit sinkers and mishit cutters were very easy to play defense behind last year, and this year the ball's coming off the bat a little stiffer.
Yeah,
and
Hayden throws like 98.
Yeah. So he said our defenders were in. It was a rude awakening early in the year. It was pretty cool.
We also had a great piece on the site this week from our man Patrick Ebert, really breaking down Indiana State, in particular a deep dive on their pitching staff, because we know a lot of those position players. I mean, 7 of their 9 starters are back from last year on the diamond, but really a new cast of characters leading the pitching staff, and I thought it was great to read Patrick's breakdown of those guys. So check that out if you're interested in the Sycamores, and you should be, because they could be a top 8 national seed. They certainly look like they're going to host a regional again. Guys, we got a question in the chat from one Berkey. Is it Berkey Grandhair? I don't know how you
never
pronounce
heard of
that.
Berkey Grandhair.
He says, "Hey, first time, long time. Was waiting for the Horizon League breakdown. Why do you hate it? Hey, listen, you got a point here, Berkey. I think we got to talk about the Norse, guys. Big series for Northern Kentucky. Hashtag fear the Norse. They've had a great year. It's been one of the really amazing turnaround stories over the last couple of years. I mean, it started last year. They kind of jumped up in the league and became a factor. But now, we need to see if they can rebound, because they had a little hiccup here the last 2 weeks. They had been cruising along, lost a home series to Wright State, lost 2 out of 3 at Oakland, dropped the midweek game at Xavier. That's 5 losses in their last 6 games. Big series against Milwaukee. I think on the road, let's see if the Norse can get back on track. And
Fitt, can I give you some really bad news?
Please.
So I just looked up this name, this Bert Granger, in the pronunciation guide, and I hate to tell you, Granger is actually French.
That's French. I knew it.
It's an outrage.
Outrageous.
They're fake crackers.
Look at Granger.
Fitzy, you want to roll into another conference?
Sure. What do we got?
Mountain West.
Mountain
maybe?
West. Mountain West's a good one. Am I on the wrong day here?
No, there's a continuation.
What a
there's a
mess.
continuation game.
I
See,
see.
you were
Okay.
ragging on me, and
Well,
you're
no,
all over the place.
If you look at the Friday scoreboard in the Mountain West, it says that currently Nevada's up 5-2 in the 6th inning, which threw me for a loop. But apparently, as Joe's saying, it's a continuation of a suspended game. So I'm back on track.
Hashtag Go scoreboard.
That was scary moment right there, guys.
Okay,
Flying
can you
without a
just
net.
talk about Delaware State and Long Island and NAC for me, please?
No, we're going Mountain West. It's my turn, please, Kendall. Guys, how about boy? It's not much to talk about in Mountain West right now. Is there Air Force Nevada? I mean, Nevada. I guess that's the one. And it's important to note that Nevada's up 5-2 in the 6th inning.
Place your bets accordingly.
That's helpful. Air Force, though, Air Force having quietly a pretty good year. I mean, there's nobody in the league besides Fresno is above 500 overall. So and UNLV actually is too, but they're 6th place in the league. Air Force though is 2nd place in standings at 10-7. It's a 1-bid league. It just depends on who gets hot at the right time into the conference tournament. So let's see who can build some momentum down the stretch, and maybe it's Air Force.
I'm going to skip down to the Ohio Valley Conference. The series with Little Rock heading on the road to Roy E. Lee Field at the Simmons Baseball Complex to take on SIU Edwardsville. After a slow start, Little Rock has started to get it together. And look, I mean, there were some opportunities they missed early in the season to win some winnable games, but the reality is that the OVC was probably always going to be a one bid league. It was always going to come down to the conference tournament. So if you Little Rock, this is actually one of the advantages of being in a league like that, where it's like, hey, as long as we're right by May 22nd or whatever, like we're in really good shape. But you look at their stat sheet and it just isn't there in a lot of ways. I mean, a team that brought back every single lineup piece is batting 254 so far this season, that's just tough. Now the pitching has kind of gotten it together. Jackson Wells has not been his All-American self, but Haas Brewer, Jacob Weatherly, a couple really important pieces for them have kind of made up that slack. So as you guys have talked about in the Nerdcast last few weeks, like this is still a team. If they get into a regional, they're honestly probably Fayetteville's 4 seed. And with some of the arms they have, like against an Arkansas offense that isn't always putting up runs in bunches, like that might actually be a kind of uncomfortable matchup if it plays out that way. So, but SIU Edwardsville 8-7 in the conference, a program that has raised its floor a lot over the last 3 to 5 years. That is kind of a tricky matchup. Also, I can say from experience, the Simmons Baseball Complex, a very windy facility. You can have days there where if the wind is just going the right direction, the scores can get really, really high. And of course, that introduces some volatility. So it could be a high scoring weekend in Edwardsville for that one.
Is this a stock market show? Joe's throwing volatility and raised floors at me. I mean, this is...
Yep.
Gosh dang it, I should have I skipped the finance classes a lot in college. It's problematic in this podcast. Let me take us to the Pacific 12 Conference. Before I get to the big one, Utah, UCLA's at Utah. UCLA is very talented, and Utah we keep waiting for them to trip. They keep not tripping. It's an older team. They're kind of clipping along as an at-large team or in the hunt. So this is another important, every weekend's important for Utah. They really can't afford to have a big miscue weekend. The other one, Cal's going to Stanford, and Stanford is just starting to be friskier and friskier as this young team grows up. So Cal is gotten hot. This is a big weekend for them. The big weekend is Oregon at Oregon State. These are 2 postseason teams that have just started to scuffle a little bit lately. I love the bones of both teams. But both teams feel like they're not the best version of themselves right now. Oregon had won every weekend until last, but no sweeps. So I'm very curious about Oregon and Oregon State because I think both teams are trying to find that next gear to make a stretch run. Okay, Rizzle.
All right. I could easily go to the SEC here, but you know what? I want to respect the Patriot League and our armed forces. So I'm going to go with Army and Navy. This is actually a really big series. Chuck Restano has done a really nice job in year 1 at Navy. They've already surpassed last year's win total for the midshipmen. They're 2nd place right now behind Army. They go on the road to West Point this weekend. But keep an eye on Army's offense. You'll need to keep an eye on these guys offensively in the postseason too. We just talked about potential spoilers and potential 4 seeds. Army kind of fits that mold too. Sam Ruda, Derek Berg, William Parker, all 3 of those guys, double-digit home run guys, and William Parker are actually 2nd in the league with a 384 average. The Black Knights can really hit, and we'll see if they can kind of continue that streak this weekend against the midshipmen.
Love it. Hey, Fitzy, let's do an express round for the SEC. So each of us take we're going to rank the series in order of intrigue, like in a draft format in honor of the NFL draft tonight. So Fitzy, you take a series, just like you don't even have to necessarily describe it. You can if you want, and then we'll just rip around until we draft all 7 series. Go ahead. Who's your number 1 pick, Fitzy?
Yeah, so maybe this isn't the one that you guys would be thinking of first, but here it is. Alabama at Ole Miss is a really important series for both of these teams. It's Bama survived that brutal stretch back-to-back weeks against top two teams, Arkansas and A&M. They went 3-3 in those 2 weekends. That kind of keeps them in decent shape, but they're still 7-11 in the league. Now it's a great RPI, but they're 7-11 in the league. Now they got to go on the road 2 weeks in a row, starting with Ole Miss. Important series for them, if they want to stay on track to get to that magic 13 or 14 win mark that we always talk about in the SEC. You can get in with 12. It's harder, a lot harder. Big series for them, but and for Ole Miss, it's just you got to win. You got to win now. I mean, you're 6-12. You're at home, against a mid-tier team in the league. If you're going to make a run in a regional, it's a must-win series, plain and simple.
Joe.
I'm going to go with Kentucky visiting South Carolina. If South Carolina really wants to entertain the idea of hosting, it needs to grab one of these high-end series against, one of the top teams in the SEC. That's kind of the thing they haven't done yet, unless you feel really good about Vanderbilt. And I don't necessarily, as far as a series sweep goes. So they need to do something like winning a series against Kentucky. And then on the flip side of it, losing a road series against South Carolina would not in a vacuum be anything to raise your eyebrows at. However, the reality of the fact that there's still a lot of people who don't understand Kentucky, don't know why they're winning, don't get it, who still are a little bit skeptical. And to the extent it matters, if they lose this series, there are going to be a lot of folks who go, see, we told you, like, just not what we thought they were. And that can create some pressure kind of that you have to end up dealing with the rest of the season. So there's an opportunity here for Kentucky also to kind of fend off some of that criticism, which I think would be unwarranted, but we know inevitably will come if they lose this series.
Yeah, I'm going to go Mississippi State at Vanderbilt. Like, I feel like both teams have had turbulent seasons. Now, they're both would be postseason teams, and there's a path for Vandy to host and Mississippi State to be fairly comfortable at-large team. There's also a path for both of those teams to blow up their seasons, right? Like the worst version of Vandy's been not very good. Mississippi State has taken on water at times. So this is intriguing. Like, I think this is an important series for both teams because they've kind of bobbed and weaved as far as what they aspire to. Kendall?
It would be easy to go Georgia and A&M here since Mark Etheridge is coming across state lines to go to the series this weekend, or at least the Friday game. But I'm actually going to go to Baton Rouge. Guys, this is the season for LSU. And the reason why I say that is if LSU loses a series to Auburn, which, by the way, Auburn can really hit. So I think it's actually a scary series for an LSU team that doesn't pitch at a great level. If you look at LSU's rest of their season, they have A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss. Guys, if they lose 2 out of 3 this weekend, they could win every single one of those series. They still have 12 wins going into Hoover with work to do. So for me, this is the season for LSU.
Yeah. Quick note, no Ike Irish for Auburn this weekend.
Ooh,
ankle injury, slid feet first into first base, which I don't recommend, last weekend, and has an ankle issue, not thought to be season ending, but he's going to miss some time.
Well, that's a game changer.
My opinion
he's
here,
really good in that lineup.
He is. Yeah, he's their best guy, really. My opinion here is LSU needs to sweep because they didn't sweep Missouri last week. And you're right, Auburn, has ability. They're better than their record, but they're still 2-16 in the league. And if you're LSU and you're 5-13, and if you really are serious about making a run, you got to sweep.
Can I also say this? They're not winning all 3 of those series to end the season. So
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Yep. Fitzy, go ahead.
We got time, Runes? Are we past your hard stop?
We got like 2 more minutes. So
do we have an over under, by the way, on Charlie Condon, Jace Lavalette, and Brady Montgomery home runs this weekend?
All of them.
Yeah, I mean
over and over. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey Fitzy, that's enough SEC. I think you want to take us southern, maybe Southland. Just keep cruising here.
Yeah, let's go real quick. You got SoCon this week. I think Liberty Samford is an interesting non-conference matchup here. Liberty's been up and down, kind of a weird team. But they have some ability, and it's a good test for Samford, who's leading the SoCon at 10-2. Samford RPI a little low right now for an at-large. Probably this league never winds up getting that large, but they're in the hunt if they can really, really finish hot.
Quickly on the Sun Belt, Southern Miss visiting the Cajuns. Speaking of Mark Etheridge, he'll be there for at least one game of that series as well this weekend. Southern Miss feels like a little bit of a snake in the grass here. And don't look now, but with the Cajuns, a lot of their postseason hopes are kind of hung on winning that league. And so they're in really good shape right now, but their RPI is not so good that they can really afford to fall down into second or third in that conference, because then it gets tricky.
Well, they dropped 15 spots in the RPI after losing the game on Wednesday to Houston Christians.
So,
They gotten all the way up to 45 after the Coastal Series, and they lost it. It was on the road, and then they gave all that back. They fell 15 spots after losing HCU.
They've now lost to HCU and Rice this season.
Oof,
neither of which teams neither of those teams are very good.
Stay out of Houston, for God's sakes. What are we doing? Troy and Coastal. If you didn't say that, Joe, if you did, I whiffed on it. That is Troy coming on like gangbusters. There's some RPI points to be had right there. I'll go West Coast Conference. Gonzaga had a dreadful non-conference, but they've been brilliant in league play. And San Diego's got a gorgeous RPI. So that's, speaking of gorgeous, Fowler Park in San Diego. That's a big series for that league right there.
Yeah. Big series.
Hey, Rizzo, you got any whack feelings?
Not really.
Cal Bap at Utah Valley. Cal Baptist is having a sneaky awesome year.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Tied for first place with the Lopes.
Yep.
And Utah Valley team you were on in the preseason, Runes, coming off a good year last year, in the hunt, right there, 11-7. They're under 500 overall, but they're in the mix there in the WAC.
Runes, are you excited about this weekend in Boston?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's like in an hour from now, my feet are going to be on the grass at Fenway Park, and then we get to do the game from, like you're in the press box at Fenway Park. It is so surreal. And the cause is so, like all these reminders of Pete Frates and, like the Ice Bucket Challenge and just the connection to college baseball. And, we interviewed Todd Renato, and like Mike Gambino was so like, it almost felt like a founding father of the Boston College program and this tie to ALS and how close he was with Pete Frates. And Todd Renato, we all said it was a home run hire for BC when it happened, because it's jarring for them to lose Mike Gambino. And Todd, like we were interviewing Todd yesterday, and most of the conversations about ALS and John West, their pitcher who lost his father to ALS. And, Todd Renato is literally crying on the call. Like he got so emotional that it overwhelmed him. And I mean, Todd Renato's care factor's off the charts. He's such a creative thinker in baseball. When you look at his Wofford teams, it's going to take a minute for Boston College to kind of find their footing. The league is so difficult based on, their location and resources, etc. But man, like it was the perfect hire. I don't know how else to say it. It was just a slam dunk hire for Boston College.
Yeah, and the guy's been just a perennial winner on top of that.
Yeah. So hard job, obviously, but a cool school in a cool city. So I'm so optimistic on that. So yeah, it's be with Mike Monaco and Danny Wexelman. It's just like, you get the assignment. You're like, luckiest human alive. It's crazy.
It's pretty excellent. Enjoy it.
Yeah, so good. And the other thing, Fitzy, Westminster crackers everywhere around here. It's just icing on the cake.
You're going to order some clam chowder in New England or really anywhere on the Eastern Seaboard. You're going to get yourself some Westminster crackers if they're doing it right.
If they're doing it right. Yes. Gentlemen, thank you for entertaining me with the Turbo Pod. This was excellent. Enjoyed it. Everyone have a great weekend. And that's it. We'll catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.